So with the turbo in place, it is time to upgrade the injectors and install the injector resistor bypass, because we're changing from low impedance to high impedance injectors, which means we don't want resistance in the line because there's already resistance in the circuit. That create too much resistance and possibly fry the ECU, or just cause it to not do its job. So I have purchased some Bosch 470cc injectors, and I've got a nice and easy bypass plug for the resistors, which are down there, just near the battery on the inner wing. You can see all four of them just here. So the wire that comes off, let's just give you some light. The wires that come off the top of here go around to the back of this plug, and if we unplug it, not quite sure where the clip is for this plug. Oh, it's coming away for us so we can see it better. Oh, does that just pull out? It does indeedy. So that's as simple as that. All you do is plug in the bypass plug, which I've bought from classicswede.org. You can make your own if you want, but it was cheap enough, so plug that in, and it means that the new injectors will be creating the correct amount of resistance or impedance on the circuit. So to do that, we're going to have to release the bolts for the fuel rail, and they are here 10mm, here 10mm, and here 10mm. So I'm going to whip those out. Now there's an earth cable underneath this bolt, so just remember to put that back. You may have electrical issues. I don't know if you can see, but there's one under there as well. So with those bolts out, the fuel rail should be able to be lifted. I'm just going to go around and disconnect these electrical connectors from the injectors themselves, and then what we can do is lift gently and wiggle, and this should ease the injectors out. If you can see that coming there, the injectors are just easing out of their respective ports. Obviously there's four of them, so the other three will need a bit of a pry. So once you get them loose, that'll be your rail separated. You can see little injector ports in the inlet. Now ideally, with extra time, you could take the inlet manifold off, clean out the ports, make them all absolutely perfect. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give them a little clean whilst being very careful not to let anything fall down them. And I'm going to move on to actually removing the injectors. So to remove the injector, what you do is you get this clip, and you might want to use a screwdriver, but you want to go into this gap with something and pry the clip off. So you kind of go in like this, and the clip will slide outwards. Oh, that one's just come off. So if I just show you with this one, I'm going to go in the clip, pry the clip outwards, try not to lose the clip, and once you put it past a certain point, you can just pull it by hand, and then the injector will come out of its seat, and repeat for the rest. So now we can see into the bottom of the injector rail, and we've got some very nice clean seats ready for the new injectors. They were already clean. I mean, there should be nothing getting into those parts. You can clean up the surrounding area if you want, but you know, you just have to be careful not to get anything into there, because that'll just go straight into the top of your injector and clog it, and you'll be scratching your head for ages wondering what's happened. So time to clean in these holes. There we are, that's a bit better. Just about see them all there. All I did there was a bit of brake cleaner, microfiber, a pair of forceps, and just get your forceps on the other end of the microfiber, grip it, stick them in, twizzle it round with the, obviously get a grip of the cloth, twizzle it round with the brake cleaner on, and it'll clean out any hole that it's in. You can even inadvertently remove all the grease from your bonnet pins. Obviously you make sure you use a brand new or very clean microfiber. You don't want to be leaving any foreign bodies. So here are our new injectors. That's the Bosch part number. So as you can see, these have got the correct connection for the plug. They're a side exit, which is the correct design. They've got the correct notches in the body of the injector. I can't get this cap off, but you can see the notches there that the clamp wants to slide through in order to pin it down onto the fuel rail. So yeah, other than that, the only other thing you need to make sure is that you're running the correct impedance, it's the right flow for what you need, that the nozzle size and seal size are the same, or at least going to seal against what you're putting them in, and that the height of the injector is the same. Some fuel rails will actually be held on with sort of arms, so that if you were to put slightly bigger injectors in, you could just sort of clamp down your fuel rail and it'll just clamp them down extra tight, but wouldn't recommend it. But if you're just going from Bosch to Bosch and you know, working with something that other people use as an upgrade already, which people do use these, I believe these are the same ones that are found in a Vauxhall VXR, and just try not to buy cheap ones, as in non-genuine, because spray patterns aren't what they should be. You won't make the power that you're trying to make. It's as simple as that. So just a quick side-by-side comparison. If we hold the top seal equal to each other, you can see the slots for the clamp are in line. The electrical connection is the same in every sense. The body is a bit of a different diameter, but that won't matter in this application. Some applications you'll get rails that hold the body of the injector, and as you can see at the end, the little plastic step before the seal are in the same place. The seal themselves are in the same place. There's a little bit of a difference in the protrusion of the tip, but that's because the old one's got a pintle cap, the new one is a 4 nozzle design, so slightly different ends, but that's fine. They both sit in the same place and they're both the same length in terms of where they seat to where they finish, so I'm quite happy with those. So the best way to install these is to insert the injectors into the fuel rail and then guide the fuel rail down, ensuring that all 4 injectors are finding their way into the seats in the injection ports of the manifold. So 2 things I'm going to do before I do that. One is to lube up the seals on the new injectors, so I'm just going to use some petroleum jelly on these 2 black seals. Don't remove this plastic washer, it's part of the design. That will just ensure that the injector seats at the correct height, and if you remove it, it pulls the O-ring out with it, and make sure that doesn't stay in the manifold injector port. Second thing I'm going to do once I've lubed those up is just give the engine a quick turn over, so that anything that may be inside there, whether it be brake cleaner or any bits of dust or anything that can come out of those holes, will come out of those holes. Obviously it won't fire up because there's no fuel going to it, but what I will say is you will need to pull the fuse to your fuel pump, otherwise it's gonna try and send 3 bar of pressure to your fuel rail. You could try to do that with the fuel injectors installed, but there's nothing stopping them from being forced out of the holes, so wouldn't recommend. Once that's done, I'll guide them into place. So to install injectors, it's just a reverse. You just want to be getting your lubed up seal and easing it into the seat in the injector hole. You will need to press somewhat, so I'm going to need to use 2 hands for that bit. Okay, so I've got a bit of a satisfying clunk when that went in. Then what we can do is we can use the clamp to slot in the gap in the injector, and it will go over the body of the rail, and once that's in place, it'll be locked in place. That won't be able to come out until the clamp's been removed. So that's one injector locked in and ready to go with the bottom seal lubed up. So there we are, everything's in place. Now I'm just going to try to offer these up to their respective injector ports. There is a little bit of a wiggle. Let's just help that one in a little bit. Okay, so as we can see, that first one's in, the second one's sat in the hole. I'm just making sure nothing's catching so that the rest of them can go down without any issues. The third one we can't really see, but I can see that it's in the hole. The fourth one, if we zoom in on that, or not zoom in but focus in, we can see that's going in, and that's just gone in with a bit of a nice satisfying clunk. So that's all 4 of them sat in nicely. What I'm going to do now is make sure we've got the little earth cables. Focus. So that wants to sit on top of that hole before your bolt goes in. And over this way, that one wants to sit in place there. So once we're happy with that, this first one came with a spacer under it, so that needs to go in before the bolt can go through. So we can now put the 3 bolts in place and just snug. So that's the bolts sat in place there. What I'm going to do is just give a little bit of a squirt of WD-40 on the injector electrical connections, just to give it a good healthy start to life. Just put a little bit on the threads of the bolts as well, so I can screw these bolts back up now. Just do them evenly, making sure that as it pinches down on the rail, that it's applying even force to all the injectors. They're all sat in place, none of them have moved or gone wonky, none of them look like they're in or out too much. So that's everything tightened down. So what I'm going to do now is just switch the ignition on and off a few times to prime the fuel pressure to the rail, make sure we've not got any leaks. Okay, so as you can see, no leaks anywhere. The only moisture I can see is the WD-40. It's not really moisture, it's a dry oil. So now I can place these plugs on to the injectors. And this doesn't complete any circuit of any kind because I have, let me get that one on, there we go. Yeah, there's no, they're not live at the moment because this is disconnected, so I'm going to plug in my bypass plug. So that's what it looks like. It's pretty simple what it does. So obviously if you wanted to copy that wiring, that's what you're going to be making, and Obviously there are male spades in there, so that's going to go into this end of the loom here. So that'll be that way round. And she is in, so I'll just cable tie that out of the way, stick something over the end of that so it just doesn't corrode and get full of crap in case I ever need to use it. Cable tie that out of the way, and that'll be the injector upgrade complete. And then to make best use of that, it's time to fit the stage 3, so they call it, chip. I've got one for the fuel ECU and one for the ignition ECU. So in here it's going to be a circuit board with a socket on it. So need to undo these 4 screws on the end. They are T10 Torx bits, or T10 Torx screws that you need a T10 Torx bit for. So once that's off, what we can see here is a daughter board. Whoop. You can see a daughter board, so that's this black board which has been soldered onto the main board. Now some of these units will come with a socket already built in. I don't know if they'll look like this with a daughter board, you know, fitted, or whether they'll have just a socket on the main board. What I do know is that mine didn't. So there's several options for myself when I was shopping on classicswede.org. I could have bought the chip by itself for if my unit had its own socket. I could have bought the chip and the daughter board so that I could solder the daughter board on. It's also provide instructions for soldering it on for free. I think they're for free, don't quote me on that. But they also provide a fitting service where you can send your ECU off to them. They will weld it on. If I'm not correct on that, I do apologise, but I believe that's what they offer. However, what I went for was the deposit and board purchase and fitting fee. So what I did was I paid them for the board, I paid them to fit the board, and I paid them a deposit for the actual unit. So they just sent me this unit with the daughter board fitted, and what I can do is send my old unit back to them and they will give me my deposit back. So, and obviously I had to buy the chip as well. So that is ready to accept the chip. So here are the 2 chips. So if I'm not mistaken, the top one is for the main ECU, which does the fuel, which mine has a 984 on the end of the part number, and obviously that has a 984 on there, which I believe mine has that number has the built-in immobilizer, which needs to be I believe bypassed or something written differently in the chip for it to work. Or certainly you couldn't put one in that's not for that number, I don't think. Bottom one is for the EZK or EZK, which is the ignition module or the ignition ECU, which is this one. So that is the one that we're going to be putting into this daughter board. So some of these pins were slightly bent. I'll just straighten them up as best as I can. I don't know if you can see the sticker, the label for this is just covering it, but at the top, just there, you can just see, just in front of my thumbnail, there's a little notch, like a semicircle notch cut out. That is an orientation mark, which there's a semicircle notch in the end of the base as well. So it lets you know which way round you're putting it. You put in the semicircle to the semicircle, and all you do is you line up your pins. Sorry about the bad videoing, but it's one-handed world these days. So you just sort of sit it on top like that, make sure all the pins are sitting above. There we are, so we make sure all the pins are just sitting above the holes that are accepting them. And then we can push it into place. It shouldn't be too difficult. I'm just going to try and get my hand or my finger around the back of the daughter board so that I'm not pushing on the daughter board too much. It looks like it's a little bit off. I don't know if you can see. Just a tad to the right, but this component here is stopping it from being aligned. So if I just ease this out of the way a little bit. 1 second. Right, there we go. So it's gone in. It was a bit fiddly in it. I had to use 2 hands to make sure that I didn't put any excess pressure on anything, but it's gone in quite snug. It's a very nice and snug fit, so I don't think I'll need to be putting anything over that to stop it from vibrating. So that's that one done. I can put the cover back on now and remove mine and just plug this one straight back in. So what we're going to do here is undo this T30, this T30, and this T30. That allows us to remove the underdash panel. So under here, just kind of to the left of the accelerator pedal, you can see that's the unit we want to take out. So I forget the best way of doing this now. Right, I've got this down to this point. It's going to be a bit of a crap explanation, unfortunately, but it's the best I can do. So this is the main unit, and you can see the metal bracket on it. Now, on the metal bracket, if I just show you the side of the metal bracket, there was a hole. So there was a screw there that you can loosen. Once you've loosened the screw, you can lift the bracket enough to wiggle it off the head of the screw. The other side of the bracket was sort of in a location pin. That's the best way I can describe it. It was just located into the, it was like a locking pin that sort of hooked in, and then once you tighten the screw up, it was held in place. Now to get this big plug off the end, you can just see that metal clip there. You have to push it away from, it's quite a tough spring clip, but if you see I've just moved it there, push it away from the, you know, towards my finger that's wiggling there. And then once you've done that, again it's a bit of a two-handed job, but once you've done that it will, there you go, I'm doing it, it'll release. There we are, it'll release, and it's just hooked under here. So once you get enough angle on it, it will just lift out like that. Bit of a tight spot, bit of an annoying job, but it's not too bad overall. So I'm now going to have to take that metal bracket off, screw it onto this unit, and then try and get it all to fit back. So I'll come back to you once I've done that. I knew I was missing something. So I forgot to tell you about this screw here. Can you see that? That one needs to be undone as well. That's part of the bracket, or should I say that's holding the bracket on. I think that's another T30. Nope, it was a T25. As you can see, both the holes have the setup where you can just remove the, you can just loosen the bolt and then you can lift and it will pull off. Or should I say, no, that one didn't actually. That one did need to be undone. I think there was one up here that needed to be undone. And weirdly, it now looks like there's... Do you know what? I think mine's been messed with. I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. But anyway, I'm going to transfer this over now. As you can see, different part number. So in terms of figuring out which ones come with the daughter board installed from factory, it's a bit of a minefield. There's some that definitely do. I think they're called the gold ECUs. I don't know if they're plastic gold or metal, but the gold ones I believe all do. Then after that you've got different generations and different levels of look, whether or not things are installed. So now that's been put back, the next thing we're going to want to do is remove this little kick panel. So from memory, I believe it may just unclip. Oh, I think it's tacked under here. So if we remove remove this this cover. Yeah, you've got to be pretty careful with these as well, because I've already seen a couple snap on me. Not through mishandling, even being gentle with them. I think just plastic after so long obviously doesn't like well, it just fatigues, doesn't it? So what are we here? T20, T30? No. T25? Yeah. So if we just pop this up, we will just give enough room for this to come away. So if you just ease this away, I think it's just tightly tucked behind the weather seal, and then it's sort of on a push clip behind here somewhere, so give it a bit of a tug with two hands. So there was a spring clip there which was holding onto it there, and then it slid out from there behind this clip. So here's the main ECU. I've already butchered the cradle, so I'm going to slide this out. So there we go, my number ends in 984. Got the same situation here where the plug is hooked under the back of there, and there's a metal clip here that you need to push forward in order to slide the plug out. So here's our ECU. So on the back of the ECU you can see little metal tabs. They all need to be bent back so that the top cover can come away. These are quite tight, so I like to start off with something sharp like this. I don't know what it is. Is it a wallpaper scraper? Something like that. Just get in there and get them open a little bit. Then you can get a screwdriver under them with two hands. Just, you know, have a steady pry. Once you've done that, you should be able to lift the top off. And then we're going to want to go under here. This is like a plastic clip which is holding the chip in place. I think you're going to have to pry this off as well, very gently. Yeah, there we go. So you can just pull it like that. Same on the other side. And that comes off. And then we have our chip. And we've got the little notch in the end there, which corresponds with a notch on the base. Can you see that? Just about. So it should just be a case of gently prying this chip out. So I'm going to gently persuade it. When you're reinstalling the new chip, you can just, a lot like this one came with slightly bent pins as well. But what you can do is, if you hold it and line up the first few, the next few that are a little bit bent and need adjusting, you can just hold it in place and go along with a little flathead screwdriver and just ease them into the holes, and then eventually it'll go in quite nicely. And again, it's quite a tight fit, but then we've got that cover to put over, which will further secure it. I did all this after going along and inspecting the pins and straightening them, because there was quite a few bent. Not severely bent, but just bent enough that they were going to be out of line. So that's that one installed. So it's just a complete reverse procedure. Pop the clip on. You can have a quick look inside if you want and just make sure nothing's looking all burnt, but I think you'd know about it if something was gone, something would be acting weird or not working. I'll keep the standard chip to one side in case I need to use it for anything. Place the cover back over and then just go around and bend these back into place to create a nice tight fit. That's all ready to install back in the vehicle. I've noticed a couple of pins, you can probably just see them there, they're looking a bit crusty on the ECU plug, so I'm going to give them a little bit of a splash of WD-40, or a little misting of WD-40 for the whole thing. So clip the plug back in. Insert the ECU back into its housing. If you want to put the whole cage back on and lock it away like some kind of weird Disney princess, then that's up to you, but I don't think there's any need for that. So I'm going to pop my panels back on, and it's time for the moment of truth. Does it know who it is anymore? And will it run? Oh, it's running. She's a bit lumpy. Oh, you can tell that cam's in, can't you? We're running a bit rich. We're running very rich. Why? No leaks, no carrots, no parsnips. Happy days. Got both those earths back on. That'll do for now. Next will be the MAF. So here is the standard MAF, and here is a 3-inch MAF that's a bit broken. So what I've done is, you can see the shiny sealant around there. You just cut that out, and you can pry off the top cover, and then obviously this is one I did earlier. You've then got a screw there and a screw there that loosens the gubbins, but they can't come out of the they're captive in the metal plate, but it gives you just enough clearance to get to the screws that you can't see in the metal plate. So you can undo that screw and undo that screw. Once you've undone these screws to get the plastic off the plate, you can then reach these screw holes. That one just there that I'm touching with my little finger, and that one just there. That allows you to pull the whole thing off the plastic housing. So then you're left with the empty housing. The idea is you can repeat the process with the 2.5-inch MAF, take the guts out and screw them onto the 3-inch MAF, which with the chip I've got, it's actually optimised for a 3-inch MAF, so it will run very rich, as you just saw, with 2.5-inch MAF still installed, because it's looking for the kind of signal that the engine would pull on a 3-inch MAF. And if you're familiar with physics, a larger cross-sectional area with the same amount of air flowing through it, the air will flow slower and therefore cool the hot wire less. Therefore the chip in the ECU has been made to, compensate for that and expect a lesser flow. So with the chip installed and the factory ECU, the factory MAF still plugged in, you're going to get that normal speed flow. The ECU is going to go, ooh, all that speed in a 3-inch MAF, must be a lot of air there, let's put some more fuel in and it'll run crazy rich. So I'm going to cut this open now, undo some screws, try to take all the guts out in one piece, and hopefully I can get it to fit, because I'm already seeing a difference in the sense that there's the screw holes seem to be in different places, but it is only plastic, so I can at least, it's the same size plate at least, and those top 2 screws look like they're going to match. So yeah, we can sort something out. Let's see what happens. Okay, there we go. So the lid's off. You can see the little channel where the sealer was being made. I cut through the sealant into that channel with a utility knife, and then I was able to just pop it out with a little lever. So I've just loosened those 2 Phillips head screws, and as you can see, there's another layer of sealant sealing the the electrical housing to the metal block. So we're going to have to break that. So I'm just going to run the utility knife just very gently around there, just being careful not to go in too deep, even though we can see there's nothing too close to the edge. But you don't want to be, especially around this side near the connector, you just don't want to touch anything underneath and damage any circuitry. So it turns out this one is completely different to the one that I've gutted. As you can see, I've had to drill through the plastic to find 2 screws, one of which I've loosened, the other one I've fully removed. In doing so, I've gone through a little bit of, I'm guessing, the earthing point for the circuitry. I have tested that and it's still intact, so I must have just scraped it. I mean, all I can say is, I'm guessing it's because this is a genuine unit and the other one was a copy. It was different because, or it might just because it's a different model. They've got the same mounting plates in terms of size, but the actual internals, I've took the mesh off this. You can see the internals there. The brown part that comes through is kind of fixed in place. That would not be able to move upwards or downwards, as you can see it now, through the metal. It's stuck, and to be able to lift this plastic part up away from the metal plate, that would have to go through there, and it can't. So therefore this is a different design. On the old one, it's got the kind of design where when it's sat in place, there's just like an amount of space there so that this can move up and out of the way a little bit to just get to those screws from an angle. But you don't have that on this one. There's fins, and the element section is sort of plugged into that metal plate, and then it looks like it's been glued into position. Then what they've done is they've screwed the metal plate onto the body, then they've placed this circuitry on top and screwed that down, and then they've soldered these points into position. So yeah, you have to drill through. Luckily I was able to guess where the drill holes were because they were in the same place as these ones. So by doing a little bit of measure by eye, I was able to find and extract the screws, and now this will, with a little bit of prying, because of the sealant, the plate, I'll actually be prying the plate away from the body now. So after more digging and wondering why it's not coming off, I was able to gently pry up this end of the top black plastic area and pull it out of its seat. So using the flexibility of these pins just to sort of, you know, sort of lift up the lid a little bit and let these bend a little bit to take up the stress. And just by wedging a flathead under there, I was able to take a sneak peek. See a lovely last screw in the middle there, pretty much in line with these at the end, but right there, right under all the electrics and through all the pins. So I am not going to attempt to try and drill down to expose that and unscrew it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut gently through the plastic to release the rest of the tube, and then very carefully snip away what's remaining of the plastic and the screw from below the plate, because at this point it's becoming impossible to remove without damaging the circuit or desoldering stuff. So that's what I'm going to do now. Well, there's the finished product. What can I say? You'll need a lot of patience for this, but there you can see the fifth and final screw. So angle grinder, it's doable. I did it with an angle grinder, but something like a Dremel would be your friend here. Obviously if that filament breaks, the whole thing's useless, so you might as well start again with another one. So we're ready now to mount this onto the 3-inch housing. And for my final trick, hopefully, I'll be removing these bits of material. As you can see, they don't exist on this one, and they get in the way of the lip here. I could gouge out some of the plastic, but it will start damaging the seal. This is, I think it's glass fibre reinforced ABS or something similar, so it's not pretty when you start melting it. So yeah, I'm just going to grind away the aluminium from where those little reinforcement bits are. They don't seem to do anything because there's nothing on the back end of them. So yeah, grind that flat and it should sit in nicely. So that is the one from the 2.5 inch slid over the body for the 3 inch. Kind of sitting in there okay. Obviously it's not going to sit as central as it should, but that's just because of the limitation of the design. It's not built for it. So now I'm going to put the screws back in those holes that I drilled out. That'll hold it down one side. I'm going to put the screws, top screws in there, and screw the circuit board back down as well. And that will be ready to install. Right, there she is, sealed around all orifices. Not many can say that. It's not pretty, but it's done. Let's plug it in, get the piping all clamped on, and see how she runs.